Hello everybody, I'm Ken Brant and I'm an artist. Yes I am, yes I am, yes, yes, yes I am. Okay, so here we are jumping right into the second part of this painting. I started putting the green in. As you can tell, I already have the values set up underneath. And for the green, I used Viridian green. And initially, I mixed in some Payne's gray with the Viridian green to dull it down and darken it up. And I also took some quinacridone magenta and mixed that in with the Viridian green. And surprisingly, it looked exactly the same as the mixture with the Payne's gray. So I was quite pleased with that. So that quinacridone magenta is it's definitely a paint that I'm gonna keep in my arsenal for quite some time in the future. I've had a lot of good luck using that color with various things, as well as on its own. It's a beautiful color. But here I am putting in the greens, and for the lighter part of the greens, all I did was I used that dark mixture and I added cadmium yellow to it to lighten it up. And in some areas there is just yellow ochre mixed in with that, just kind of for a lighter area, but a little bit more duller. And you can see here I left the areas open on the bottom where I know I'm going to be putting some flowers, and I didn't want to cover all that area up. I wanted to leave some area open to kind of give me an idea as to how I wanted the flowers in the field. I don't want them, just individual flowers. I wanted them in clusters, just how they look in nature, and I didn't want it to look, like they were just placed in there. So I have a bunch of areas open there just to give me an idea where I would like to put those flowers. And I'm working on the hat now. The hat was basically cadmium yellow and yellow ochre, and in some areas I put in the white. And here I am working on the dress now, and the dress is a white and cerulean blue mixture. For the shadows areas, I used the cerulean blue and white mixture, and I applied a little bit of that into a mixture of just some Payne's gray, and that really worked out nicely for the darker areas on the dress. And so here I am putting in the darkest areas, and then I'm going over with this particular area here. These are the cerulean blue and white with a little bit of cadmium yellow deep mixed in with there. There was just a slight difference where her skin was slightly showing through on through the dress, and I wanted that area to be a slightly different color. The rest of the dress is just the cerulean blue and white mixture. And now here I am blending in the shaded areas in with the lighter areas, kind of give it more blended feel. I started going back over some of the grassy area there. I wanted to darken up some areas, and then I wanted to put in some in the distance, way out in the distance there are some purple flowers. So I wanted to show those purple flowers, and then they come closer to the foreground, and you can see I'm putting those in now. So basically it's, I just made a mixture of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, and then I lightened up that color, and I kept it more to the blue side as opposed to the red side. And I lightened up that color, and I used the edge of a fan brush to put in the highlighted areas for the purple flowers. So here you can see I'm putting in the purplish flowers way off in the distance. So it's really more just a purple color, not, there's no individual flowers of any kind that far out. You can see the fan brush where I was putting in the highlighted areas. Now I'm going over, I'm starting to close in a lot of those areas where the flowers, these are going to be like an orangey red type of flower. It's really not a flower, I'd say it's just more like weeds in bloom. Same with those purple flowers, those are just, really generally weeds. So I started adding in the skin tone here, and what I'm using for the darkest areas is a mixture of phthalo yellow green and alizarin crimson, and I darkened it up using some asphaltum, which is a beautiful color to use for shading areas in the skin. It really works out well. So pretty much I just used various values of the phthalo yellow green alizarin crimson mixture, and as soon as you add white to that, it really comes out a beautiful skin tone. And on this girl here, she had more of a yellowish type of hue to her skin, so I used cadmium yellow into the mixture to yellow it up a bit. I'm going back over the dress, the shaded areas, just to kind of accent them a little bit better and really define where those creases are. And I wanted to make sure that the darkest parts of the dress showed up best, because to me it's important. You want to get a good contrast within the picture. That's what's going to show interest within the picture itself. You got a high contrast between the lighter colors and the shaded area. Now you can see the difference in the color here. You can see where I put the yellow cadmium into the cadmium yellow deep into the mixture of the cerulean blue and the white. You can almost see it near the areas on her back and towards the bottom of the dress there. And then I will go back over that again with the cerulean blue and white mixture and blend that all in together, and so it's almost seamless. I'm blending in the shaded areas here on the back. I wanted to make sure the creases in the dress looked realistic. So it's important you get a good blend between the light and the dark areas in there. And it's really just a matter of just, playing with the brush, going over, back and forth. And for the, you'll notice the shaded area where the hat is hitting her dress up near the top. For the light areas that show up on her collar, that is really just the cerulean blue and the white mixture mixed in with almost straight Payne's gray, and it came out, pretty nice that way. Now I'm going to put in the grass here, starting, where the purple flowers kind of end and coming towards the foreground. There's no simple way to put the grass in. You really, it's just, almost you're just pixelating the colors here back and forth between light green and dark green, and it's important you want to put the light green over those the darker areas. It kind of gives it a nice contrast in the grass, and that's how it looks in in real life. So you'll see I'm just got this, you know, small brush, and I'm just, you know, almost not one blade of grass at a time, but a grouping of grass basically, and it's very time consuming. There's just no way around it. If you want your grass to look realistic, you have to you know, do it this way. As I get closer to the foreground, I can get a little bit stronger with my brush strokes on that grass, and it goes a little bit quicker because you're doing, you know, broader strokes with groupings of grass closer together, and it's a lot easier than these tiny little strokes that you see I'm making here with the small brush. I'd say all in all, this took me probably this side of the painting, I would say took me maybe almost an hour to do this side of the painting for the grass, and then about an equal amount of time on the other side as well. I apologize that you can't see what's going on here at the bottom of the painting. I did realize that I needed to move the camera, and then so you'll get to see that in a moment here. There we go. So you can see the larger strokes of the brush, and notice that I have a lot of the lighter green areas as I come closer to the foreground. Your colors are going to always be brighter in the foreground than they are off in the distance. One tiny stroke at a time. And all I did was just kept varying back and forth. I would go into the dark Viridian green and quinacridone magenta mixture for the darker areas, and then I would dip into the cadmium yellow and mix that in there to lighten it up. And I just kept going back and forth and back and forth. And you can see, if you look on the right side, you can see I covered up a lot of those areas that I had left open where the flowers are going to go, because now I have a better idea, now that the grass is in there, where I would like to have those groupings of flowers as you move closer to the foreground. So I wasn't too concerned about you know, those particular areas, leaving those open. And you're gonna see here, they'll get covered up pretty good once I stipple the flowers in, starting from off in the distance and coming closer to the foreground. You can see that those areas that I left that are remaining open, those will be covered. And like I said, there's just no way around this. I couldn't really. I mean, maybe you could make a brush, you know, like take a larger brush and then cut it down so you have with some gaps in it, so you have some smaller hairs sticking out individually off the larger brush, and maybe you could then, you know, attack the grass quicker that way, making, you know 5 blades of grass as opposed to 1. But all in all, I really believe this is the best way to do it. Just, you know, like I said, just a small haired brush, 1 stroke at a time. You can see here now that we're getting close to the foreground. I can really start making bigger strokes and grouping the grass closer together. Now I'm putting in the flowers. This is just I'm using the quinacridone magenta mixed in with some cadmium red, and it makes for a really nice. Uh, it's not really a pinkish red. It's more. It's still red, but it's just a little bit on the duller side. And I kind of went over that with some cadmium yellow to put in the the center parts of the flowers in there. Like I said, I wanted to make sure that those were more like in groups, as opposed to just a bunch of individual flowers just sporadically throughout the field. Now I'm putting in the highlighted areas on the dress. I wanted my focal point to be pretty much on the left-hand side of this painting. I wanted that white on her sleeve and that white, very white part on the collar and the white area on the hat to be prominent, the brightest areas of this painting. Now I debated heavily on whether or not I should put a pattern on this dress, and as I kept looking at the painting, I'd step back and look at it, I realized that the dress itself really dominated this picture. So I knew I had to do something to kind of offset that a little bit. So I started stippling in this pattern from a distance. It could be like a flowery type of pattern. It really doesn't matter because you're not going to see any detail. So I just used a smaller brush and just kind of started putting in these spots, and it's really, again, just a mixture of that cerulean blue and the Payne's gray mixture that I used on the dress, kind of for the shadow areas. So I kind of kept that the same, but I knew that in the darker areas that the pattern would be darker than the shaded areas itself. So I had, I think I mixed in a little bit of black in there with it, just to kind of darken it up in those areas. And it wasn't a lot of black, like I said. It was just a very little bit, just enough to make it darker than the Payne's gray that I had on the dress already. Then I went over it with some green because I wanted some, like, there were like little leaf patterns in there I wanted with the flowers. So you have I do have some green on this dress, and it's the same green I used for the grass in the field. So it kind of harmonizes it a little bit. Now that I had the pattern in there, I wanted to go over the creased areas on the dress, kind of bring those out a little bit. And on the hat itself, there was a pattern, because it's kind of like a straw hat. So I wanted to show the lines of the straw, but I didn't want to show a lot of detail. So here's what you see I'm doing now. I'm just putting in the darker areas and the lighter areas to show the line work of the straw hat. And I kind of blended that in. I kind of dulled it down a little bit, and I kind of blended that in there, and it came out pretty good. All in all, I was extremely satisfied with the way this painting came out. I was quite happy with it, and basically now I'm just putting my signature on it. It's, as far as I'm concerned, this painting is done. So all in all, I was quite happy with this. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure you give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I will have a lot more paintings I'm going to be putting up, as well as my vlogs on marketing, and hopefully together we can get ourselves into an area where we're selling our art and doing well with it. So until next time, thank you.